Kevin McKenna is sometimes called the last journalist standing in the land. Award-winning Scottish journalist, Celtic man, and all-round good friend of ours. Kevin McKenna joins us now from Scotland, where, Kevin, you were earlier at Turnberry. Now, I'm of the view that golf is a good walk spoilt, and when it's an orange walk, as this one was, it's particularly hard to watch. So I'm glad you watched it all so that we didn't have to. Give us a picture of what it was like, please.
George, how are you? Good to see you.
And you, my friend.
So I was at Turnberry yesterday because the newspaper that I work for, the Herald in Glasgow, wanted, and you'll know this terminology, they wanted a sort of colour piece on Donald Trump playing at his multi-million-pound golf resort on the Ayrshire coast, and they wanted me to speak to some local people to get their reaction to the American president in their presence. And it was a bizarre start to the day because I was perched on a little hillock overlooking the third green, fourth fairway. And the photographers and me were waiting for maybe an hour and a half for something to happen. And then all of a sudden, there was an entourage. There was about, I would say, 30 to 40 motor vehicles, including about 20 electric golf buggies. And these were led by Donald Trump and his playing partners, including, I think, his son, Eric Trump. And then they just buzzed around them for the next three holes. Like, you would see him putting out or just approaching the green, and it would have been about 20 of these buggies. God knows who was in them. I'm imagining various chiefs of staff and special advisors. And I had a giggle to myself because I was imagining them all trying to jostle for position and status and wanting to get close to him so that they could shout, "Way to go, Mr. President," or something like that. And before that, we'd been treated to the sight, another bizarre sight of about 40 military personnel and policemen sweeping every inch of the fairway as though it were a minefield. And then out on the Firth of Clyde, and this is a beautiful part of Scotland. It's a beautiful coastline. There were a couple of, I would say motor launches, but probably gunboats. And you know what journalists are like when they get together, and photographers are even worse. The black humour is thick. And of course, there was a lot of talk of grassy knolls. And I'm looking nervously around. I'm looking nervously around at this gunboat, and I'm looking at the two sharpshooters that I could actually see. There's bound to be a dozen more that I couldn't see, and I'm thinking they can pick up every conversation up and down the Clyde coast, probably up and down the Irish coast. And there's some bampot here talking about fucking grassy knolls. Right?
There's no grassy knoll like Turnberry, of course. Maybe they were shouting, "Let's go, Brandon," or the Trumpian equivalent. How were the local people taking it all, Kevin?
So, George, they were... see, there's a massive disconnect in the left in Scotland at the moment between the so-called kind of old cultural left, which you and I would probably understand. It's not that difficult, advocating for trade union rights, workers' rights, fair employment, good pay, better housing, equality of health, equality in education, all these things that have made our lives, our parents' lives better, all of which were secured by the advocacy and the campaigning of left-wing politicians, the old Labour Party, as was now sadly no longer. And in these communities in North Ayrshire, you have to understand that several of them, have been left twisting in the wind by the buffeting of the economic free markets. They've been left behind. If you look 30 miles down that coast, you'll come to a port called Stranraer. Now, Stranraer was a bustling town in Galloway. It was busy with ferries coming in and out. The economy was good. It was very working class. And then suddenly the ferry companies decided they were moving their operations 6 miles up the coast. And in the 12 years since, Stranraer has been left behind. It's become something of a ghost town. And some of these communities, including the one that I was at yesterday, was a little village called Maidens. And I was speaking to a bunch of men and women who were members of the local bowling club, who, luckily for me, were competing in the over 55s Scottish Open Bowling Championship. So they were also happy to talk to me. And for them, the debate over Trump, and they're very well informed, as many people in the Scottish working class are. They were all over culture, history, economics, and they were conscious of the fact that that there were demonstrations in Aberdeen and Edinburgh against Trump's visit, and they were saying, they were no Trump apologists, but they said this guy has bought a failing golf course, put millions into it, and has secured employment for dozens of local people. He uses local contractors. It has given a little bit of a jag to the local economy. And they were saying people have to factor in these when it comes to Trump, or when it comes to a guy who is trying to, or who owns 2 world-class golf courses in Scotland. On the other hand, it's £1,000 to play a single round at Trump Turnberry, £1,000. So these local people would never ever be able to play around at the hotel that overlooks their little village. And the reason why I say there's a disconnect is that quite a lot of the protesters, the people I was speaking to in Ayrshire were saying, well, they don't have real life experience. They're kind of middle class, well shod. Their left wing socialism is performative. It's based around things like trans rights and climatism, and none of them would be able to find a working class community with a sat nav, let alone actually get there. So there's that kind of disconnect. But as you were saying earlier, Trump, when people point these out, they also feel they have to apologise for Trump, because they know you have to understand here, George, we have all had to suspend belief, not only when Trump became president first time around, but the fact that America went and did it again. And when you're talking about the psycho aspects of his presidency and the acolytes that he surrounds himself with, you do have to suspend belief that this guy is running the biggest economy, the most powerful nation on earth, and he's utterly, utterly unpredictable. How can you have someone like that who has got the welfare, who's got the safety, the security of a massive part of the world? And then you look again at the left and think, well, we have to take responsibility for this, because as has happened in the UK and in Scotland, working class people, blue collar people, educated, well informed, but people who have been kept out of the professions or who haven't gone to university, they have been reviled and they've been dismissed by the liberal social cultural elites who operate on the left in Scotland, in the UK, and in America. And you know what? After decades of ordinary working people, people that you and I have known and have grown up with, after decades of this elite, this wretched elite telling them that they're bigots, that they don't eat properly, that they drink too much, that they speak the wrong words, that they are not up with the right pronouns, they just go, well, you know what? You know, to hell with you all. And it means that you have scavengers like Reform UK, and you get scavengers like Trump, and who come along, who can speak their language or appear to speak their language, appear to be in their interests, and they get into power. And it's no use. It's no use the left saying, "Oh, look, this is terrible. Let's march against them." You've got to say, well, you look at yourselves and ask yourself why so many working class people, decent people with decent values, feel compelled to vote for chancellors like this. You have to ask that. And if you're not prepared to ask that question and to look at the reasons, then you deserve everything that you get. Actually, I'll correct that. No one deserves Trump. But you can understand where I'm coming from. You've seen it. You've commented on it yourself.
It's pure poetry, what you've just said. Music to my ears. It's my analysis also. It is the analysis that millions of unrepresented British people and American people, tens of millions then, feel that they were called by the left in the form of Hillary Clinton, the left presidential candidate, as a basket of deplorables. And whatever the Scottish translation, a message bag of deplorables, is how the left that were there yesterday might regard some of the people of the bowling club that you were talking to. I should say in parenthesis that I had no idea it was £1,000 because I've never played golf in my life and never will.
No,
but
me neither.
£1,000 is definitely. There's only one game and the ball is considerably larger for me. But he runs a good golf course. He did pick up a failing golf course. Not sure whose millions he spent on it, but millions were spent on it. The hotel in which I've stayed, me and the wife stayed because I was giving a performance, a birthday party there a few years back, is exquisitely lovely. Not at all the gold, vulgar temple that you might imagine Donald Trump to own. And Scotland's economy is such that you probably can't afford to spit in the face of somebody who's generating jobs and economic activity. At the same time, as you yourself alluded to, this man's capable of declaring World War III at the 7th hole if his putt doesn't go in. This is the horrifying danger of this kind of person with his finger on the trigger, right?
Yeah, and today he is, today and over the next few days, he's meeting Keir Starmer. He was greeted by the Scottish government, John Swinney, one of the most cowardly politicians Scotland's ever had, who was condemning Donald Trump for his performative treatment of Zelensky in the White House a few months ago, although you could do an entire programme about what that was all about and who was acting what. And then, of course, Swinney, who basically holds his finger up in the air and sees which way the wind is blowing before he makes any decisions. All of a sudden, his advisors say, Mr. Swinney, the American president's coming. And he's welcoming him with open arms and saying all the right things. But Starmer's pathetic. This guy, after a few, how long's he been in power? Seems forever. I know it's not. He's
it's
judging.
Only a year. Only 1 year.
He's judging the efficacy of his administration by how many percentage points, how many thousands of pounds or millions of pounds he can shave off, or he can get back in the trade negotiations. His position with America. I mean, we've talked about Tony Blair in the past, and being supine and bowing before America, but this guy Starmer has found new depths. He's not even got as high as bootlicking, and it's not a good look. It basically says to Britain, when it comes to America, we have no independence from America. You're talking about Israel being the 51st state. We're on the way to becoming the 52nd state. When a Labour Prime Minister...
We wouldn't even get statehood, Kevin. We wouldn't even get statehood. We'd be like Puerto Rico. We'd be like, we're an offshore dominion, but not worthy of statehood.
And, Starmer, a UK Prime Minister at this very, very delicate stage in global geopolitics, you would expect to have a strategy. You would expect that he would come in when Trump is visiting his country and say, right, well, he's in our territory. We need to do some hard talking here, Mr. President. But you know that he won't. And, the fact, Trump's calling this a private holiday, but it's not. There's nothing private about it at all. He's here basically to lay down the law to Starmer, to the EU, to anybody else. And we, in turn, are basically basing our relationship, rooting whatever relationship we have with the United States on dollars, whiskey, and salmon. Is pathetic. All the things that are happening in this world, all the places that we're at where there's severe jeopardy, where millions are dying, in Ukraine, in Gaza, in parts of Africa, when there are poor souls rocking up in small boats, being enslaved by bad people. And we've known about this for years, and none of our governments has been able to do anything to target the slave drivers. Instead, it's all about these people coming, taking our jobs. Where have we heard that before? All of these things are happening, and we're talking about shaving a few points from a trade deal. It tells you all that you need to know. This is about big capital. This is about the ruthlessness of the markets, all of it, as has always been our battle, our class battle. All of it can be seen through that prism. And sadly, we do not have politicians with the vision to see that. And if they do see it, they don't have the honesty to do anything about it.